But now things need to move quicker. So you're starting to hear IT teams talk more about agility and, automating different routing tasks and like breaking down certain like technical silos where certain data was, very hard to get to previously. So providing tools and systems and paths for marketing teams to operate faster when they need to move fast, but also still being able to cover their bases and say, hey, yeah, this is safe. This is what we want to be doing. So that's what I'm seeing.
Welcome to the Lessons for Tomorrow podcast. Think of the show as the motivational poster in your ear. Each episode features lively conversations with technology and marketing leaders about what's changing now and what's coming next. We'll unpack what's working, what leaders are rethinking, and how they're planning for the future. Every guest brings a different story, a different perspective, and a different approach. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with others. Let's jump into the episode.
Alrighty, back at it. Arlind Rojba, Partner Director, moderating another Lessons for Tomorrow podcast. I'm joined by my good friend from WP Engine, Justin Mitzel.
Hey, Arlind. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. It's good to have you on. Good to see a familiar face doing the podcast with me. So, Justin, before we kind of get into things, do you want to go ahead and let the people know kind of what you do at WP Engine, how you support the partnership, things like that?
Yeah, I'm the principal enterprise account executive here at WP Engine. I've been with the company for a little over 10 years now, so pretty well versed on just about anything related to WordPress, the WordPress ecosystem, and of course, the WP Engine platform. I work specifically with enterprise organizations that want to come on board and launch on WP Engine, but I also do a lot of work with our more strategic partners like American Eagle. So, my job is really to connect the right people, ask the right questions, and provide the right data points for some of these mission critical projects. And if the project's a good fit, I transition into more of a project management role. So overseeing the procurement process, I do a lot of work with like IT, security, vendor management teams, and work through a lot of like the vendor like risk assessments and things. So very familiar with some of the topics we'll be discussing today.
A man of many hats at WP Engine, not just your average enterprise account executive. Justin, I kind of want to set the stage for the people, right, before we dive into some of our great topics, but there's a little bit of friction going on, right? And it's between marketing and IT. And I think today you and I are going to figure out, how we can solve some of that friction. In other words, how can we save this marketing and IT marriage? Because it's falling apart and, we don't want that to happen, right? So, they're both at the table. They're at the dinner table. Marketing wants one thing. IT wants another thing. And they can't find that common ground on where they want to land and where they want to be. So the good news is you and I are going to do that for them. We're going to find that common ground. We're going to save that marriage, and everybody's going to live happily ever after, right? So let's get right into it, start with a couple of topics here. So I talked about this friction, this failing marriage. Justin, from your perspective, like, where do you think it's coming from, right? Is it something structural, maybe a cultural thing of how IT and marketing operate? Like, what do you think is causing some of this friction, some of this stress?
Yeah, so I think firstly, not all of those marriages are failing. There's some really great combinations of marketing and IT that come through, but I do see a number of them where they're just very disconnected. And a lot of times it comes down to just communications and setting expectations, and then also like siloed data. So marketing by nature wants to move fast. IT by nature wants to slow things down. So just there a lot of times it's lack of communications on what the requirements or the standards are from an IT standpoint versus what sort of application the marketing team is trying to deliver.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think one thing that is a little bit, misinterpreted is I think that IT thinks marketing approach is wrong, and I think marketing thinks IT approach is wrong. And like you said, it's not every scenario. These are, a few scenarios. But I think one thing that they both need to kind of understand and realize is that both are operating in the best interests of the company, right?
Right.
marketing's wanting to move fast for a reason, while IT is wanting to slow things down for a reason, right? They're not doing it to spite each other and, make one look bad or the other. I think they both have the best interests in mind. And I think we need to figure out here, where's a common ground that we can get them to so that they're both realizing they're on the same page and operating within the best interests of their respective company, of course. So you know, that's my kind of take on it. Not sure if you agree or disagree, but that's kind of what's been going on in my head while thinking about this topic here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we just got to kind of understand that things are moving really fast these days. Competition is fierce. So just really kind of stepping back and understanding the mandate of each of those organizations and kind of like what their responsibility is. Uh, you know, Marketing, they really need to differentiate their brand from competitors. And particularly in the age of AI, they really are reliant on IT to help them move fast and achieve the velocity that they're trying to achieve. IT by nature, they want to slow things down. It's their job. They need to ensure that the company is within compliance. Both from a regulatory requirement standpoint, an internal standard standpoint. Making things even harder for IT is like those things are constantly evolving, particularly with the advent of AI. So, yeah, both teams are chasing the puck that's moving. Marketing wants to move fast, but IT is kind of the friction. They want to slow things down, but for very good reason.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to the punch there because you mentioned regulatory reasons, and just as you were going to finish up your thought, I was going to say, well, AI, and you hit it. You hit it before I even got there, right? So AI brings a whole different level of regulations, in my opinion, right? New AI products coming out every day. You have to figure out, number one, what does it look like in respect to your own company? What does it look like when you're using AI for the end client of a company? Like, there's a whole different world out there right now that I think is coming through with AI. And I think there's something that needs to be done, right, with marketing and IT to figure it out a little bit. Like, how can we land on a common agreement for regulations? Maybe it's a super trusted tool already in the space that everyone's using, so we can kind of fast pace it forward, or hey, this is something brand new that no company's using. We need to slow it down.
Yeah, I mean, AI has been kind of the topic we've been discussing almost on a daily basis for the last, call it 18 to 24 months. Teams have been mandated to be ready for AI and have the ability to incorporate AI, but very few of them have a more sophisticated plan on like how they're going to do it. They just know that they need to be ready for it, so they need to be able to check that box. Um, I would say in the last like 4 or 5 months, like we're starting to see teams come with more sophisticated ideas on how they're going to incorporate AI. Marketing is leading the charge on a lot of those things. They see AI as a way to differentiate their brand from competitors. Uh, and AI is really becoming like an important component of their digital marketing strategy. So, particularly for content, from like a WordPress standpoint, I see them. They want to enhance the user experience and deliver a more personalized user experience. And of course, to deliver a more personalized user experience, you need certain data points regarding the users in order to deliver that sort of experience, which is where IT kind of enters the mix there, right? So, yeah, AI is the topic everyone wants to discuss these days.
Yeah, and I think with AI, some aspects has to play a little bit of a waiting game, which can be a
Yeah.
gift and a curse, right? The gift being if, whichever aspect you're using it for crashes and burns in some other areas and you waited on it, you don't have to worry about that happening to you. I think the curse part is how fast everyone and everything is moving, right? And if there's any kind of slowdown there, I think that can truly affect a company in a way, right? You're not doing the latest and greatest. You're not advancing the latest and greatest, right?
Right.
What's the holdup? What's the holdup? Like, we need to kind of figure out how to address some of this. But I also think, a lot of this delay can help incur a lot more technical debt for companies, right? You're waiting so long. AI can help some of those shortcuts, right? For some of the technology that you've waited so long for. But to me, it feels like it's a Band-Aid. It's not a permanent fix. Everything's ready to go. It feels like, okay, we're going to use AI to vibe code it and just place a little Band-Aid on it, right?
Right.
I think that is a problem. I think technical debt in general, I think everybody can agree is a problem. Kind of just like if you're not paying off a credit card, that interest rate will sneak up on you. So you better pay off that credit card, right? It's the same thing, I think, with technical debt, right? You should make those upgrades when you have the opportunity to do so. You shouldn't let it sit, because 5 years from now, you're going to be looking at some ugly technical debt. Things are not going to be working. And in your mind, you're going to be wondering, how did we get here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, from that standpoint, it's about kind of being able to peek around the corner and see into the future about potential ways you might want to utilize AI. And I'm speaking specific to from like a content and digital experience standpoint, and being able to kind of structure things with the idea that you're probably going to want to access certain things and do certain things in the future, and having access to that, and having things set up so that you can move fast when you do want to eventually move fast. Where I'm seeing a lot of where I've seen a lot of the friction has been from like an IT standpoint, with how fast things are moving. They are working on establishing what their internal standards and how their company is going to approach that. And I think they're kind of taking that, let's wait and see to see how the market plays out, what other companies are doing, what other competitors are potentially doing, to make sure they're not doing it, wrong, right? So they want to make sure that they are, managing, storing, transmitting that data, in a way that's safe for their users, that's in compliance for the company, but also that gives marketing the access that they need in order to kind of deliver these different applications and deliver on some of these use cases and stuff. So, and some of those, some of those things, depending on what industry they're in, gosh, if they're in a regulated industry like, finance or healthcare, gosh, I mean, that can be a tough job, because there's already a ton of like regulatory hurdles there also. So, yeah, right now that's kind of the friction point. It's just, IT teams really having emerging, AI policies and strategies on how they're going to approach that sort of thing. So that's at least what I'm seeing from a content digital experience standpoint.
Yeah, not only that, but I think they're also juggling some of the old tech, like we kind of discussed, some of that technical debt, some of that old technology, right? Like maybe with AI here, it kind of helps them say, hey, this is something now with the emergence of AI and how fast we're moving forward. Like here, we need to address everything in the past first. One example I think I've used multiple times over the last few months hosting this podcast has been the AEO GEO conversation, right?
Yeah.
And that is, your content's getting scraped by all these LLMs, you're popping up in these LLMs. And I think if you do have some of that technical debt with old content mixed in there as well, you're not going to do so hot on AEO and GEO. So I think this kind of helps give IT maybe that reasoning on, hey, let's clean up some of that old stuff and keep using AI to push us forward, right? So for me, feels like a pretty good business case with AI. And I think when you start to bring in those conversations of AEO, GEO, content, etc., I think it brings a good alignment, right, between everyone in marketing or in finance or whatever it might be, right? I think you can find some really good common ground there, because everybody, you don't want to be showing up with terrible AEO, GEO, and LLMs. You want to be at the top, right?
No, yeah. And AEO and GEO are as important or more important than SEO. The conversations that I've been having, the last 18 months, it is, very similar to how important SEO was in the early 2000s. AEO, GEO is how people are finding sites, finding brands, discovering new experiences, and it's contextual. So it's a little bit different type of content, and it needs to be queried a little bit different. So, and that, that takes a partnership with IT to be able to kind of access that sort of data. And, there's an emerging word that you're starting to hear within IT organizations, because of this, and it's agility. Previously, the the process of going through IT was purposely slow. They wanted to, measure twice, cut once. They wanted to make sure that they were, doing the right thing from a, compliance, from a regulatory standpoint. But now things need to move quicker. So you're starting to hear IT teams talk more about agility and, automating different routing tasks and like breaking down certain like technical silos, where certain data was, very hard to get to, previously. So, allowing, providing tools and systems and paths for marketing teams to just to operate faster when they need to move fast, but also still being able to cover their bases and say, hey, yeah, this is safe. This is what we want to be doing. So that's what I'm seeing.
I love that you use that word, Justin. I love the word agility. I think that's the word that saves the marriage, right? So to speak. I think marketing wants to be able to move really fast. They need to have that flexibility, the agility to adapt to every situation. IT needs to have that same type of functionality for their security procedures, for their standard procedures, for their regulatory reasonings, right? I think that is the word right there that we can land on for both groups to show that, hey, there is common ground. You both need agility just in different circumstances. So how do we kind of put our heads together and find a way for us both to operate that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen some really successful projects get launched on our platform very quickly. And I would say, the things that those projects have in common is just both the IT agility, but also the communication. So marketing teams, before they're midstream with the project, going to the IT team saying, hey, here's the project and application we want to deliver, here's why, and seeking to understand the most up-to-date company policies related to like data management, things like that, anything that might be specific or might be needed for whatever particular project they're trying to deliver on. So if they go to an IT team before they engage with like my team, for example, gosh, we're able to work a whole lot faster and move a whole lot quicker as a group to get that thing moving.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? And I think that was kind of what I wanted to get into next, actually, was, there's obviously different groups and organizations are measured in different ways. If you're the marketing team, they're kind of looking at you and they're saying, all right, how can we grow our brand? And how fast can we grow our brand? And how much can we grow it year over year, right? If they're looking at IT, they're like, well, we don't want any bad situations. We want everything secure. We want everything locked down. We want it to be very stable. And how do you kind of mix growth and stability? I think you really made an excellent point right there, which was, hey, if so-and-so from marketing approaches whoever from IT prior to going to a certain technology that they need and say, hey, we're looking at this. We think someone, whether it's, the person they're contacting or somebody from the IT team, should be involved from the very beginning. I think that does speed up the process a lot more. I think, IT is able to ask their questions. They're able to go through their own procurement while marketing is able to ask their questions at the same time. And sometimes that ends up being into two different situations, right? IT gets split up this way with whatever the product is. Marketing gets split up this way, but then all of a sudden they find their way back to each other. So I think that is a really powerful strategy. And I want to give you the chance to talk about it too, but I think that's a direction that should be taken by both teams.
Yeah, like in particular, when working or engaging with a third party vendor, I would encourage IT to a lot of times lead the way, ask the hard questions first, get the there's going to be certain requirements they have for different things. Ask those things first and foremost, and let's get the way that I say it is get to know quick. And it's like, hey, if the answer is no, or if it doesn't align with what's needed, let's figure that out first and foremost. Let's not waste days, weeks, months even, and then find out later on that, oh, this vendor does not actually align with our internal requirements from a data management for standard regulatory standpoint. Let's figure that out quick. So back to some of the really successful projects that I've seen that are able to, where they've been able to move really quick. a lot of times that the initial conversations I have are with the IT team. They're saying, "Hey, tell me about your policy on this. Tell me about how you approach this. Tell me a little bit about this." Um, and once they've kind of checked all those things off the list, then they get handed over to kind of the ball gets passed to the marketing team, who kind of leads the project the rest of the way up to implementation. So that's again, one of the ways that I've seen teams really be able to approach projects where they want to move fast very successfully.
Yeah, and I think when you approach the projects like that, there's nobody's giving up a particular, thing in this scenario. Marketing's not giving up the product because it doesn't pass, and IT's not giving up their standard operating procedure on how they vet out and flush out some of these solutions. I think the key, obviously, take a proactive approach, right? Nobody likes a fire drill. Nobody likes a reactive approach. Nobody likes a tight deadline to get something across the door. So if you're able to take this proactive approach with both teams together, I think the success rate is significantly higher than if you're just reacting to a situation and you're ready, you're at the finish line, you're ready to get this product and put it to use, and all of a sudden there's just a giant flag on the play. IT says, "Hold on, this doesn't pass any of our internal regulations." I think that approach, right, it can eliminate in certain situations a certain product early on, and that time investment that would have been days, weeks, months turns into a couple days here onto the next one, and you keep going from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, just know what you need to know to move fast and kind of have a game plan there. But yeah, definitely seeing a lot more teams working in that way, particularly like mid-market and enterprise. The mandates are coming from the C-suite, from the highest level. So these teams I'm starting to see a lot more synergy, a lot more working together. They know that this is a company mandate. It's not a marketing mandate or an IT mandate. They understand that they need to work together in order to sit there to bring bring the application to market as fast as possible. So they are, it seems like there's a lot more synergy on these things in recent months, years. But yeah, I would say just be intentional with the project and kind of understand what all the variables are, both internally and externally.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I think the businesses that kind of have this figured out and are very successful at it do take that kind of approach. They're acknowledging that they're all working towards the same goal. And I think one thing that is, maybe it's a little helpful tidbit, is if you're running into this, like, maybe get a weekly, monthly sync on the calendar between marketing and IT. Like, hey, this is our 3-month outlook. This is what we have coming up. This is what we'll need. And this is how IT plays a role. And then IT says, great, this is what we'll need. And this is how marketing plays a role, right? So I think having maybe those cadence alignments, getting both teams on the same page all the time, I think that goes an extremely long way. And I think it's very underrated that maybe not a lot of people are realizing that just that one 30-minute meeting once a month saves you 8 months of a headache and potential heartbreak in the speaking of a marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anyone needs to, either team needs to lessen their standards or their requirements, or they need to, make, they need to make changes specific to each other. I think you just need to communicate very clearly what the standards and what the requirements are. And from my experience, typically once they're well communicated and clearly communicated, it's pretty easy to work within those sorts of frameworks. So
Absolutely. And Justin, on the topic of AI, I know we've discussed it a little bit throughout. I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on the WP Engine side of the house. I know you guys have some really cool stuff coming with AI. So in particular, the AI toolkit. So I wanted you to kind of give all the listeners some feedback on the AI toolkit, what it is, how it helps, things like that.
yeah, so here at WP Engine, I'm working with WordPress all day long. So all the projects that we're working on are all very content focused. So I think it would help to kind of articulate how teams are leveraging AI for their different content strategies. And there's a few different ways to do it, but I would say they kind of boil down to, are they enhancing the user experience? or delivering a more personalized user experience, or they're able to increase content volume by using some AI tools to like create content quickly and get that published into market very quickly. So here at WP Engine, we've been working on different tools to make it easier for content creators to move quickly. So the AI Toolkit is a suite of developer-centric tools. It's designed to transform WordPress from a static CMS to kind of what we're calling an intelligent content engine. So things it includes is like smart search AI, a managed vector database. Vectorization is a big word that I'm hearing a lot and saying a lot more these days. Essentially, transforming your WordPress content to data that can be seen and used by both humans and by AI agents. So you can leverage this to, again, helping your customers find more relevant content, or maybe it's through like a chatbot and feeding them information that's existing on your website that's very relevant to their search or whatever they're asking on their chatbot. Or it could be back to like the AEO GEO thing, right? So making it really easy for the LLMs to find your content and interpret it and interpret the context so that it's delivered to people when they see it through like a Google search or something like that. So and it's the toolkit is constantly evolving. I know what we're delivering today is going to be we're going to be augmenting to that and adding new tools, new features in the coming months and quarters. So really excited about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait to see how it progresses and how it evolves, throughout the coming days, weeks, and months.
Yeah.
I think I want to kind of, wrap this up with just maybe one lesson from each of us. Justin, we'll start with you, but what do you think is one lesson that IT and marketing teams could take away from this podcast to have better discussions and potentially align on a better web strategy together?
Communicate with, if you're marketing, communicate with IT. If you're IT, be very clear with what the requirements and framework is for your company when engaging with marketing. So I would say, the communication, communicate.
Yeah. And I think what I'll end it with is take a very proactive approach to all of this, right?
Yes.
Don't let it come down to the last minute. Don't try to react at a moment's notice. Plan it out together. And you'll find that there will be a lot of great success when you take that approach.
Absolutely. I love it.
So, Justin, my man, thank you so much for the conversation. Appreciate your time as always. Yeah, of course. We'll have you on anytime. We're fun podcasts here.
Yeah,
we have a good time.
We'd love to come back.
Yeah. So, appreciate it a ton. And I hope that everybody takes away some good messages and some good lessons from this podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Lessons for Tomorrow podcast. Find out more about AmericanEagle.com services and today's topic in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share this episode with others. This podcast is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios, and we'll catch you in the next lesson.